Wraith, or Banshee as he was known in the alpha build, is one of the 3 original killers available in the game since its release in the summer of 2016. Today we know him as a pretty solid killer, who's fast, has a strong stealth component, and a variety of cool add-ons which can be used to create all sorts of builds. However, the release version of Wraith was a whole different story, because the only remarkable thing about him back in the day was his unofficial status as the community's laughingstock. First off, his power used to be much easier to track, because back then not only the whoosh sound from it was map-wide, but also the bell sound. So even if somehow you had trouble hearing that infamous hissing noise, the loud ringing would most certainly compensate for it, allowing you to know when exactly Wraith was cloaking and uncloaking. Alright, I'm pretty much in one of the corners. Can you cloak? Alright, I heard that. Both the bell and the whoosh. Can you uncloak? Same. And here comes the whoosh. There you go. Bro, that's just bad. That's just straight up bad. The irony of the situation was that the first version of Wraith didn't even have his signature bell yet, so the ringing which compromised his own power during the appearing and disappearing animation was literally coming out of nowhere. The map-wide audio from the Wraith's power felt especially unfair at the beginning of the match, because before patch 1.3.0, Wraith started the match uncloaked, and in order to benefit from his power as early as possible, he had to cloak manually right after the intro animation, and thus conveniently notify all survivors about what killer they were going against. Good thing the devs were at least smart enough to make the Wraith sounds mono, so that on top of knowing when Wraith was using his power, survivors couldn't determine where he was doing it. Sadly, it worked only for survivors standing farther than 20 meters away from Wraith. If you were anywhere closer, the game would play the sounds in stereo, making it super obvious which direction Wraith was coming from. Ring, ring, keep ringing, keep ringing, keep ringing. It's still mono, still mono. There you go. There you go, now it's stereo. That's the distance. That's pretty far away, I'm not gonna lie. But again, let's not pretend that the map-wide audio cues were the main reason why the old Wraith sucked ass. It was actually something much more serious that I, as a genuine Wraith enjoyer, take as a personal offense. The thing is that while on paper he was supposed to be a stealth killer, he was pathologically bad at keeping himself hidden. For example, if you were looking for survivors around the map while being invisible and you accidentally walked by an idling crow, you would actually disturb it and automatically give yourself away to any survivor who saw this. Of course, this mechanic was not exclusive to Wraith. Moreover, it still applies to most of the killers even in the current version of DBD. But still, it baffles me how out of the 3 original killers, Wraith, being the only stealth killer, was the one who suffered from it the most. And there you go, they're back. Alright, let me just get a little bit closer. A little closer. Closer, and there you go. That's the distance when they get scared. But crows were the least of the Wraith's problems when it came to stealth. What really f***ed him over was that while cloaked, he used to be visible to survivors from any distance and not just within 20 meters like today. The fact that his old invisible camouflage had almost no shimmer effect didn't help either, because it made his outline look omega static and as a matter of fact very easy to make out. In other words, if you were in an open spot and didn't forget to look around every now and then, the old Wraith had practically no chance of sneaking up on you unnoticed. But even if, let's say, you were sitting on the gen somewhere in the jungle gym or in the main building where you had no direct line of sight to Wraith, there was still nothing to worry about. Because at the release, the sound of his footsteps and the grunts he makes while being cloaked were so loud, you would hear him from like 30 meters away, which is pretty much the equivalent of the standard terror radius. Except for in this situation, an actual terror radius would probably be even better, because unlike the Wraith's cloaked noises, at least it wouldn't be directional. You're to my left? You're still to my left? Now you're to my right? Bro, yeah, now you're to my left again. Bro, I think I can track you perfectly even with my eyes closed, so yeah. Nice ability, I guess? And it's not like bothering with stealth was worth it in the first place, because what's the main benefit of stealth as Wraith? That's right, the ability to perform the so-called surprise attacks. That's when you quickly uncloak behind an unsuspecting survivor and hit them before the chase even starts. But the problem is that in patch 1.0, surprise attacks were pretty much impossible to pull off. First of all, because there was no delay for the bell sound and the smoke effect which follows the uncloaking animation. They happened pretty much the moment you pressed M2, which as a matter of fact gave survivors some extra time to react and get to a safe spot. And second, back in the day, Wraith suffered from a much bigger speed penalty when uncloaking, and when he was finally fully uncloaked, ready for this? He didn't get any speed boost like in the modern DBD and instead was forced to catch up with survivors like a default 4.2 killer. Now, taking all this into consideration, can you imagine how much distance an average survivor with Spring Burst was able to gain in the release version of DBD before you as Wraith were even remotely ready to attack them? Alright, so I'm gonna approach you and start uncloaking, and you're gonna start holding W with Spring Burst, and we're gonna see how much distance you're gonna gain. And go. Oh my god, that's so slow. Stop. Bro, look at this. No, man, that's just, no, that's just too much. And don't you even get me started on trying to actually use the old Wraith's power for chases, because this was sheer torment, mostly because of the Wraith's lower movement speed while being cloaked. It was only 5 meters per second, and I know that to some of you it might seem like I'm just complaining for the sake of complaining, but trust me, when you actually try this in action, bro, I swear it feels like survivors would meet for this and hope in the current patch run faster than this. Additionally, if you wanted to benefit from your 5 meters per second not only at the beginning of the chase but actually mid-chase as well, you would have to recloak a lot, and that would cost you a pretty noticeable loss of speed, just like when you're uncloaking. And here's my favorite one. While being cloaked, you were not allowed to interact with anything on the map, meaning that you couldn't kick gens, couldn't break pallets, couldn't search lockers, and couldn't grab survivors out of there. The latter could be used to bait the uncloak and then use this time to get to a pallet or a window. Double Swift Hunt? I'm afraid I'm not gonna have enough time to just... Oh no, wow, that's Spring Burst, I swear. Okay. Go, please. No, bro, even with double Swift Hunt, I swear, you cannot counter a locker. And like all this shit wasn't enough, since the release of DBD and until very recently, Wraith could be burnt with a flashlight or flashbang, which used to momentarily stun him. That is, if by momentarily you mean 4 seconds, because that's how long it took him to recover from the light burn in patch 1.0. Meanwhile, the burning time was only 1 second, so basically all you had to do to burn the old Wraith was slightly graze him with your flashlight beam, and there you go. Now he has to do the Street Fighter DZ dance for half an hour. Considering how weak the old Wraith's base kit was, you've probably already guessed that in the original roster he was one of the most add-on dependent killers. His 12 original add-ons fall into 5 categories: Blink, which reduces the disappearance time; Swift Hunt, which reduces the reappearance time; Windstorm, which gives a short speed boost after uncloaking; Blind Warrior, which increases the light burn resistance; and All Seeing, which allows you to see the auras of survivors within a short distance while being invisible. On top of that, there were also 2 individual add-ons with unique properties. That is Bone Clapper, which reduces the range at which the bell sound can be heard, and the Ghost, which removes the terror radius after uncloaking if you stand still. When I first went through this list, I was like, dude, that's some pretty sick shit. I mean, with this, you should totally be able to make Wraith almost as viable as today. But after a while, I realized that most of the Wraith's old add-ons that I thought were good are basically a part of his base kit in the current patch, meaning that if you really wanted the release version of Wraith to stand a chance against his new version, you would have to give him the yellow Blink add-on to compensate for the slowdown while cloaking, the green Windstorm to do the same for uncloaking plus the post-uncloak speed boost, both of the Blind Warriors to make flashlights less devastating for him, and also Bone Clapper to at least slightly improve his stealth potential. And even after this, I'm not sure it would be a fair comparison, taking into account the overall balance of the old DBD. In my opinion, literally the only 2 ways to get the old Wraith to a somewhat playable level was to either bring the green Windstorm or double uncloak speed with the old Tinkerer, which would further increase the efficiency of those add-ons and allow you to uncloak almost instantly. Think of it as the Wraith's version of the Hillbill's Insta Chainsaw or Huntress Machine Gun. Alternatively, you could get the best of both worlds and do a combination of these 2 builds. As you can see, Wraith had a really bumpy start, and even though it was obvious that he was struggling, the devs were really reluctant to help him in any way, to the point where the first patch that had at least something to do with Wraith was the one that gave Old Killer several additional add-ons. In case with Wraith, he received Coxcomb Clapper, which moderately reduced the range at which the bell can be heard, Yellow Swift Hunt, which moderately reduced the reappearance time, 3 new Blind Warrior add-ons, which increased the light burn resistance from considerably ability to complete immunity. Purple Windstorm, which gave 1.5 second speed boost after uncloaking, which is funny cause that's what the green Windstorm used to do before that, so to justify the rarity of the original Windstorm add-ons, behavior had to nerf them by 0.5 second each. And last but not least, the green and iridescent All-Seeing, which allowed you to see the survivors auras while cloaked within 6 and 10 meters respectively. And again, since the green All-Seeing was now overlapping with the yellow one, the former was nerfed to only 4 meters. This was quickly followed by patch 1.2.0, which directly addressed Wraith's stealth play. It increased the shimmer effect of his invisible form, slightly reduced the volume of all sounds he makes while being cloaked, and made it so that he could no longer disturb crows while being cloaked. Did it help him become a better stealth killer? Look, behavior, I'm sure everybody appreciated your effort, but come on, after almost 4 months of waiting, something tells me that the community expected the changes to be a little more ballsy. Alright, now let's see the new shimmer effect cloak. Alright. Guys, are you sure you even added anything? Cause bro, I legitimately cannot see the difference. Somewhere between patches 1.2.1 and 1.3.1, there was a pretty interesting undocumented change, which made cloaked Wraith completely invisible when he was standing still. And that's kinda funny, because the only use case for this I can think of is camping. Or that gimmicky thing when you make survivors think that they loaded into a game without a killer by standing cloaked in a corner the entire game. Patch 1.3.0 finally added the bell modal and the bell animation when Wraith was using his power. And that would have been a cool quality of life update, but in reality it turned out to be a nerf, cause starting from this patch you could no longer attack immediately after cancelling the cloaking animation. You had to wait several seconds till the bell stowing animation was finished, and only then you could press M1 again. And believe it or not, removing this weird penalty will take behavior about 2 years. No, wait. I want to try this in front of a pallet. So, fake cloak, and now I cannot attack. Bro, let's try and do this again. I swear I was spamming like crazy. And does this mean that I cannot launch attack? I literally have to wait for like ages before I can launch attack? Wait. Fake? Wait, and bro, and only now I could do that. That's insane. On the PDB for patch 1.5.0, the devs introduced Bloodlust in order to help killers deal with infinites. And for a short period of time until this update went live, Wraith was able to accumulate Bloodlust while being cloaked. Imagine if this was actually intended. The first major buffs for Wraith started coming out in the second half of 2017. Patch 1.7.1 reduced the volume of his growling while being cloaked for the killer and survivor POV. And then in just a month it was reduced again, but this time only for the survivor POV. Alright, now cloak. Oh my god, that's so loud. And I think I can barely hear it. Bro, oh my god, that's so much better. I can only hear you now. There you go, yeah. Only goes to show how insanely loud Wraith sounds used to be. But the actual breakthrough happened in patch 1.8.3, shortly after the release of Freddy. First things first, it made using Wraith's power way less punishable by reducing the distance at which the bell sounds can be heard to 24 meters, and the whoosh sounds to 40 meters. Alright, let's try from about here. Can you uncloak? There you go, perfect, no bell sound. But whoosh sound, yeah, I think I should move about here maybe. Can you do it again? Can you cloak? Yeah, there you go, couldn't hear anything. This change alone instantly made Wraith way more viable as a stealth killer. Next, the devs reduced and readjusted the cloaking and uncloaking speed penalties to make them feel smoother, and introduced a 1.5 second delay for the bell sound when uncloaking. This roughly equals to 50% of the uncloaking animation, and combined with the new uncloaking speed, it allowed Wraith to punish inattentive survivors with surprise attacks. He also became better at chasing, cause since this patch he was allowed to interact interact with objects on the map while being invisible. This was achieved by temporarily uncloaking him for the duration of the interaction. Along with this, Wraith was given the ability to track injured survivors through bloodstains on the floor, which were now highlighted in bright red if you were cloaked. A super neat feature which basically gave Wraith the base kit Bloodhound, but unfortunately later, around patch 2.2.0, it just stopped working, and I don't know why. It was never mentioned anywhere in the patch notes, so I'm assuming it was a bug, but if it's true, how come it's been like 6 years and no one has noticed it? Just like, for example, no one's noticing the fact that in the current patch the Wraith's whoosh sound can actually be heard map-wide again, even though in 1.8.3 it was specifically limited to 40 meters. Wait, right here? Till I get on the other side of the map. Alright, I'm outside of your terror radius. I think that should be more than 40 meters. Can you, cloak, I guess? Because you're uncloaked? And... yeah, I still hear the whoosh, bro. I thought I was taking crazy pills, but I guess it's bugged. The funniest thing about 1.8.3 was the epic, legendary, much-awaited buff to the light burn resistance, which increased the burning time from 1 second to 1.5. Whoa, behavior, careful, don't overexert yourself. One thing that's probably worth mentioning is the borrowed time situation. In patch 1.9.2, it was reworked into protecting only the survivor that's being unhooked within the killer's terror radius. It was done to reduce the number of campers and tunnelers in the game, but Wraith was actually one of the few killers who could straight up bypass this by standing right next to the person on the hook while being cloaked, or better yet by running the old Ghost add-on, which completely removed your terror radius if you stood still after uncloaking. Not sure if you can count it as a buff, or at least an indirect buff, but that was certainly something that people used to do back then. And I guess the devs were satisfied with the work they did, because during the next 7 months they didn't think about changing Wraith in any way. However, the community had a different opinion. Their complaints didn't stop even for a second, and in the summer of 2018, behavior finally gave in. First of all, they shortened the duration of the light burn stun from 4 to 3 seconds, making flashlights less of a factor for him. Then they further adjusted the timing of the bell sound and the smoke effect, moving them a little closer to the end of the uncloaking animation, so that they didn't give away your position too early. On the 18th of September, Wraith received a very special set of buffs which marked the beginning of his new era. Patch 2.2.0 further increased the time required to burn Wraith from 1.5 seconds to 2 seconds, made the uncloaking speed curve even smoother, completely removed the movement speed penalty when cloaking, and, drumroll, incorporated the effect of the Green Windstorm add-on into the Wraith's base kit, granting him a speed boost for 1 second upon uncloaking. 3 years. It took them 3 years to do it. Run in a circle, I guess. Let's see how, like, if I'm gonna be able to reach you with the reappearance add-on, and yeah, there you go. And my... I think... No, wait. I wouldn't have reached you probably, but you hesitated and that's how I got you. At this point, the only thing which still reminded people of the old Wraith were his add-ons. Shortly before patch 2.2.0, there was an update that brought us the Tinkerer rework. After the 24th of July 2018, it no longer improved the efficiency of selected add-ons, and instead it would give you a notification when a generator was repaired to 85% and remove your terror radius for 12 seconds. As a result, Wraith's add-ons that were formerly affected by this perk lost half of their value. But instead of buffing the individual add-ons, the devs completely reworked the entire set, turning them into what they are today. There were various other quality of life changes, like for example an even quieter footsteps audio, the fix that allowed you to M1 immediately after cancelling the cloaking animation, and much more. But honestly, none of that mattered anymore, cause Wraith mains already received what they wanted. But behavior refused to stop. It's almost like they realized how little love Wraith had been receiving all this time, and they decided to buff him even more. Patch 4.5.0 made Wraith completely invisible when cloaked to survivors standing farther than 20 meters away from him, and increased his post-uncloak speed boost from 1 second to 125. Patch 4.6.0 considerably increased the Wraith's movement speed when cloaked from 5 to 6 meters per second, and slowed him down while uncloaking from about 2 meters per second to 1.6. And in case you haven't notice out of all the changes we have covered so far, the latter was the first legitimate nerf to Wraith. That's how much improvement he needed. The weirdest change during this period, in my opinion, was when the devs decided to make Wraith unavailable for new players until they complete the killer tutorial. I mean, it could be justified if the tutorial was even slightly useful, but unfortunately it teaches you the dumbest shit you can imagine. So yeah, that's pretty much what I'm talking about. See, the killer is right over there, he's about to pick her up, and what the game tells me to do is press spacebar to pull down the pallet. And now I'm gonna have to vault over it. Bro, solid usage of map resources. Then there was a quick adjustment of the Wraith's post-uncloaking speed boost, which returned it back to 1 second. And honestly, I don't get it. How was 125 too much, considering what you used to be able to do with the old purple windstorm? The last change he's received so far was the complete immunity to light burn, which is both good and sad. Good because you no longer have to be paranoid about flashlights in your lobby, and sad because, well, it was a pretty unique and interactive mechanic that's just kinda gone now.